Imagine standing at the edge of every fear you have ever refused to name. The fear that grief never ends. The fear that faith might not be enough. The fear that the hardest stories, the ones we carry in the dark, will never find the light. Now imagine a woman who has lived inside those fears for over 6 decades and has finally decided to speak. Her name is Nancy Guthrie. She is 84 years old, and what she is saying now has left even those who thought they knew her completely stunned. This is not a story about scandal. It is not about secrets or hidden controversy. This is something far more powerful. This is the story of a woman who taught the world how to grieve and is now revealing what grief truly cost her. Stay with us, because the truth she is finally sharing may change the way you see faith, suffering, and hope forever.
Welcome to Star Files News. Today, a woman whose silence lasted decades and whose word finally spoken are changing everything.
And before we go further, if stories like this move you, please subscribe to Star Files News and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Every single subscriber means the world to us. Now, let's get into it. To millions of readers and conference attendees, Nancy Guthrie has been a lighthouse, a Bible teacher, a speaker, an author whose books have guided countless families through the deepest valleys imaginable. Her voice, calm, measured, deeply theological, has been a constant source of comfort for those walking through loss. For decades, she was the woman with the steady voice, the woman who knew Scripture like a trusted old friend, the woman who, no matter how dark the room, always seemed to know where the light was. But behind that composed, commanding presence, behind every carefully delivered sermon and every published page, was a story her audiences only partly understood. Because Nancy Guthrie did not become an expert on suffering by studying it from a distance. She lived it, completely, devastatingly. Nancy and her husband David faced what no parent should ever have to face, not once, but twice. Their daughter Hope was born with Zellweger Syndrome, a rare and fatal genetic disorder. She lived for 199 days. Every one of those days precious. Every one of those days borrowed time. Then, years later, their son Gabriel was born, and he too carried the same condition. He lived for 6 months. 2 children, 2 goodbyes, the same unthinkable ending twice. There are moments in life that break you open so completely that nothing, not theology, not community, not even prayer, can immediately make sense of them. This was one of those moments, multiplied. In the years since, Nancy has spoken publicly about faith through suffering. She has written books that shaped a generation of grieving parents. But what she rarely spoke about, until now, was the interior experience, the silence after the hospitals, the weight of ministry carried during private mourning, the questions that lingered long after the cameras were off. For years, people looked at Nancy Guthrie and saw strength. What they saw was real, but strength has a shadow side, and Nancy is only now fully willing to speak about what lived in that shadow. She has shared that there were seasons of spiritual exhaustion so heavy she could barely open her Bible, the same book she taught to thousands. There were nights of tears that no conference audience ever witnessed. There were prayers that felt less like declarations of faith and more like desperate whispers into silence. She has spoken candidly about the loneliness that can accompany public ministry. When you become someone else's symbol of hope, you carry a weight that very few people acknowledge. People project strength onto you, and sometimes in protecting others from your struggle, you accidentally isolate yourself inside it. She has described the pressure to remain spiritually strong for others, even when privately she was held together by threads. That honesty is striking, not because it diminishes her legacy, but because it deepens it enormously. There is one moment in particular that has captured the attention of those who follow Nancy's ministry. 4 words, spoken by her daughter. Words that stopped people in their tracks. She's still alive. Taken out of context, those words seemed impossible, even unsettling. The public had followed Nancy Guthrie's story for decades. They believed they understood how it ended. But grief, real grief, does not end. It transforms. What Nancy's daughter was describing was not denial. It was not confusion. It was the emotional permanence of love. The way memory does not simply store the past, it inhabits the present. The way a person who is gone can still occupy the rooms they once filled, still echo through the rhythms of daily life, still feel achingly, actively alive in the hearts of those left behind. "She's still alive" meant love did not end when life did. And for a family shaped quietly, privately, by a grief the world saw only an outline, those 4 words carried the weight of everything that was never said on a stage. At 84, Nancy Guthrie is not a woman defined by what she lost. She is a woman defined by what she chose to do with it. She has spoken about how her understanding of hope matured through grief. In earlier years, hope felt immediate, tied to outcomes, to answered prayers, to visible signs. After burying 2 children, hope became anchored somewhere deeper, in eternity rather than circumstance, in God's character rather than God's explanations. She no longer offers quick answers to hard theological questions. She has said openly that some questions about suffering will not be resolved in this lifetime, and remarkably, that admission has not weakened her faith. It has deepened it. She speaks about prayer differently now, not as a performance, not as a negotiation, but as presence. The act of sitting quietly before God, without elaborate words, and trusting that being known is sometimes more important than being answered. And she speaks about the younger believers she hopes will not wait for tragedy to anchor themselves in something true. Faith built only on comfort, she has warned, can crumble under pressure. But faith cultivated through daily dependence, through small, ordinary trust, can endure when the unthinkable happens. Nancy Guthrie has spent decades giving others language for their grief. She has written the sentences grieving parents held on to at 3 a.m. She has spoken words that gave suffering people permission to feel what they were already feeling. But now, at 84, her message is shifting from instruction to testimony. She is no longer focused on protecting a public image. She is focused on finishing well, on telling the full story, not just the parts that read cleanly, and trusting that honesty is itself a form of ministry. She has said that the true measure of her life will not be found in publication numbers or conference invitations. It will be found in the quiet faithfulness of people who learned because of her that it is okay to grieve honestly, that doubt does not disqualify devotion, that sorrow does not negate trust. That's the truth she is finally fully sharing, and it is the most powerful thing she has ever said. Because it says you do not have to have it all together to have faith. You do not have to be strong to be held. And a life marked by suffering can still, absolutely still, be marked by steady, enduring hope. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Star Files News and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Hit the like button, share this with someone who needs it, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. We'll see you in the next one.